Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. Bob in Raleigh, North Carolina, listening to us on Sirius XM. Hey, Bob, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. Hi, Congressman Pocan.
Hey, Bob.
Very timely show. Question for you, Congressman. From the work from Greg Palast in regards to interstate cross-check and the numbers of in John Ossoff's district were staggering. It seems to be something at least possibly 50,000 people were pulled off the polls. And since he only lost by about 9,000 votes, I wanted to see or get your opinions as to what you thought the impacts were of that, and how do we keep putting the pressure to get this out in the open and the integrity of our voting systems until, frankly, we can become a Democratic majority once again, and we can have faith in our voting system.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Great questions. So let me take it a little broader, then I'll come back down to interstate crosscheck. I think I'd even go to just the attacks on voting rights, period, right? That's photo IDs, less early voting, all the other attempts that we have out there, state by state across the country. There's a lot of different attacks. Interstate crosscheck clearly bumped a whole bunch of people off the polls. In some states, it's harder to get back on than others. And we have a bill that actually we are officially dropping next week, finally, on the interstate crosscheck. We've got a lot of groups that worked with us on it to make sure that it's much, much, much more difficult to drop someone off the polls in the future. So that's something we're looking forward to putting out there. But also on interstate crosscheck, today, an election official from Wisconsin is testifying in the Senate, and I read his testimony, and he talks about interstate crosscheck and some of the other attempts. So I think people are really starting to know that is one of the big core issues around making sure we have a democracy. We just want to finally put a bill out there that just puts it front and center so we can kind of organize around that.
Yeah, that is great. David, listening on WGRN in Columbus, Ohio. David, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, Congressman. I'm always hopeful when I listen to you, but what's happening with the rest of the party? Are you having any effect on changing their policies and promoting real choice and promoting real democratic values, or are they just going to do the same old thing and keep losing?
Sure. David, that's probably the $100,000 question, right? Make sure that the party itself, because we know they have a large apparatus across the country to do it. I'm very heartened that my good friend Keith Ellison is now the number 2 person at the DNC. And quite honestly, Tom Perez, I would argue, is probably the most progressive of the cabinet secretaries under Barack Obama. Having those two in charge of the party gives me encouragement that I see a lot of the things they're working on, the summer of resistance, they're working on a fall effort as well, that they understand we have to mobilize the grassroots to win back elections. I think my job is to make sure that some of my leadership in Congress also understands that, because sometimes I think there is an inside the beltway thinking that people forget what the rest of the country's like. And I know Wisconsin and the upper Midwest very, very well. A lot of the voters that we lost were Democratic voters who we didn't talk about trade right. We didn't talk about their wages and jobs right. Some of those core economic issues. Let's not lose them. Healthcare is a great issue for us to work on. But I'm seeing right now the party structure moving in the right direction. And I went to People's Summit a few weeks back, and I thought that was a great effort. People are talking about working within the system to make it better. So, David, still be encouraged. I think there's a lot of good things happening, but that means we got to continue to work to make sure that it doesn't fall apart.
There you go. Russell in Hickory Hills, Illinois, listening on WCPT. Hey, Russell, what's up?
How you doing, Tom? Mr. Pocan, excuse me. The bill that the Senate sent to you, 98-2, on sanctions on Russia, is it true Paul Ryan's so afraid of the base that he's going to water it down and not bring it up? Because if he does, the base will get angry at him.
Yeah, it's true. They're working it through every possible committee they can send it to
Really?
just slow it down a little. We're not exactly sure what their intention with the bill is, but clearly if they could just take it up immediately and pass it if they wanted to, and they're not, right? It came out of the Senate with that kind of a vote. So, we'll keep watching, but you're observing exactly what's happening. They sent it to a lot of different committees to slow it down.
Watch this space. Judith in Chandler, Arizona. You're on the air with Congressman Mark Pocan.
Thank you very much, Congressman Pocan. My question is about why this country shouldn't just split. It has been oligarchy versus democracy pretty much since the beginning of the country. We had a civil war over it, but essentially, in one way or another, it has consistently been part of the country has been democratically oriented, and another part of the country has been oligarchically oriented, and it's been a shift back and forth between the two, and it's like the divide just doesn't meet. Why should the country just not split?
Yeah, so Judith, I look at it a little differently. I think among the political class, there's definitely a fight between the oligarchy and democracy. But among the people, even, I think people who sometimes vote Republican, I don't see that. I see, it's just a matter of making sure that they understand what their government is doing to them in many cases. But let's face it, most of the tax policy, most of the healthcare bill that they passed is all helping the top 2%. So, you could say split off 2%, but that's not fair to the 98% of folks. We may have some people voting the wrong way against their best interests, and we have to explain that to them. But I believe in the democracy still. I'm still, I think that it's our job to just pick up this fight a little stronger and see if we can take it back in the 2018 election. But we have to remember elections have consequences, and we're paying the price of the 2016 election right now.
But we have a situation in the United States where we've got 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's prisoners on the bottom end. We also have the majority of the world's billionaires on the other end, and we've got income inequality that we haven't seen since 1929. Excuse me. Isn't oligarchy an issue?
It's absolutely an issue, but I don't think the average person, even beyond the average person, is advocating for an oligarchy, right?
It doesn't become a bumper sticker.
Yeah, I think it's the political class, right, is where the oligarchy is working. It's that 2% funding the elections and really, in many ways, manipulating this current Republican Party that we have in Congress and you see often in state legislatures. But I'm not going to throw away the baby with the bathwater when, really we just have to deal with the American people. I still think want to do the right thing around a democracy. We just have to fight for it and make sure that they know what they're up to.
Amen. Live in the studio with us, Congressman Mark Pocan, taking your calls. You can tweet Congressman Pocan at Rep, as in representative, R-E-P, Mark, M-A-R-K, Pocan, P-O-C-A-N. And also your website is pocan.house.gov.
Yep.
Right? Okay,
perfect.
So let's pick up some more phone calls here. Angelo in Downers Grove, Illinois. Hey, Angelo, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Good morning, Congressman. How are you?
Morning, I'm good. Thank you.
Very well. Good morning to Thom Hartmann.
Thank you, Angelo.
I find you very inspirational. One brief question. My concern is that sometimes the Democratic Party has forgotten that it is a political organization, and the chief aim of an organization is to win votes, is to win elections. Getting close doesn't get us, to where we want to be. I believe that we have to overcome one factor. The Republicans have convinced their constituents to swim through shark-infested waters or crawl through broken glass to go and vote to keep the Democrat out. What is a similar campaign that the Democrats can put and to show the people that it isn't the individuals that they're facing, but rather the principle of republicanism is the thing that is an anathema to the average person, and to make sure that, if you vote for the Republican, your life is not going to get better. As a matter of fact, it's going to get a lot worse. And
unless you're a billionaire. Unless you're a billionaire. Angelo, thank you.
Yeah. Angelo, I think I look at a lot of the grassroots groups. There's over 6,000 indivisible groups across the country right now. There's other progressive groups in Wisconsin. We have a progressive grassroots network. We have right now Our Revolution having a convention this Saturday in Wisconsin. We've got all these groups out there, and I think we're seeing this incredible level of enthusiasm, people calling our offices, doing political activities, having marches and rallies. I think that's what we need. Now, we need the party to make sure they're grabbing that energy and turning that into electoral success. But the first part is happening, which we need to happen, is that people are having victories. We need to define those victories and show them. It's not picking up a deep red district, quite honestly. The victory is stopping them from gutting ethics laws for members of Congress so they can get away with anything for their special interest friends, or stopping them from introducing a cabinet secretary for labor who said he prefers robots to humans because they don't get sick and they don't take vacations. Those are the victories we got to keep relaying, and then the party has to be smart enough to energize that into electoral success. And I think it's happening. And trust me, Keith Ellison gets it pretty much more than anyone I know of.
Jeremy in Woodland, in Woodland, California. Jeremy, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yes, good morning, Congressman and Tom. I've been a long-time Democrat for 49 years now, and I have been through quite a few elections. I am really getting very frustrated with the Democratic Party not being able to name what the issue is. And the issue, as far as I'm concerned, is all of the information we have from Greg Palast and Chris Kobach in terms of what he's doing, voter suppression, gerrymandering. That's the reason Democrats are losing elections. It has nothing to do with flawed candidates or anything else. And until we identify what it is, we're going to continue to lose elections. If someone has a spike that they're driving in your foot, and you don't say, get the spike out of my foot, you know what? They're going to look for your other foot.
Yeah. So
what a metaphor.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you, Jeremy.
So Jeremy, I agree. Gerrymandering, voter suppression, the interstate crosscheck, all those are crucial issues. But you have to be in power in many ways to make the changes right now. So elections have consequences. 2016 didn't go our way. The Republicans are in charge right now of the House and the Senate and the White House and a majority of the governorships and legislatures in the country. And so we have to take those seats back in order to then fix the issues. So we just have a gerrymandering case in Wisconsin, just got approved to go into the Supreme Court yesterday. And we're hoping to get some good things out of that. But I completely agree. If you don't have a democracy, if everyone doesn't have that equal chance to vote, the Koch brothers and I should have one, or Koch brothers should have one thing in common with my brother and I, is that we all have one vote. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way under the current system. But we have to be in a position to change that, which means we have to win elections. So we're paying a price for 2016, but I think with this enthusiasm going into 2018, if we're capturing it correctly, we can take back some of these governors and legislatures and seats in Congress and then start to turn this around. But I agree with what you're saying is a problem. I think first and foremost, though, you can't change it with Paul Ryan in charge of Congress and Mitch McConnell in charge of the Senate.
Gus in Chicago, listening on WCPT. Hey, Gus, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
How you doing, Tom? How you doing, Representative Pocan? Big fan. I'm calling regards to, obviously, the special elections yesterday, and it's good to hear that you're going to have a bill dealing with the voter suppression issue. But it's two things, basically. One, I think there should be more done, at least in respect to lawsuits, in respect to getting this out in the media and a couple other issues. And also, in my opinion, should Tom Perez basically just get the boot, because it's not just the fact that they lost this election. All the special elections have basically been a loss for the Democrats, and they banked all this money thinking Ossoff was going to be the silver bullet, not to mention the big debacle over endorsing the candidate for mayor in Omaha over the abortion issue. So, frankly, not only is it that Perez should get the boot, basically shouldn't there just be basically a purge of all the Clintonites? Because, frankly, insanity is doing the same thing over again, expecting different results. And, frankly, all the Clintonites do is the same thing and then have the nerve to blame everybody else when they fail.
Well, hang on, if I may, before you go with that. Thank you, guys. Number one, this narrative that John Ossoff was the silver bullet, I never heard that from any Democrats. I heard it on MSNBC, I heard it on CNN, I heard it on Fox. I never heard it from the party. And secondly, this circular firing squad of blaming everything on Hillary Clinton makes me crazy. I'm sorry. I just had to interject.
Well, so two things. One, I mean, first of all, I think we all know the DNC doesn't run the congressional elections. They do send volunteers and do provide some assistance, but they're not run by that. So blaming Tom Perez for that, quite honestly, I think is probably misguided criticism that's out there. Let me reiterate, I think, what I said at the beginning, because I think it's really important. None of these races were races that, quite honestly, we would have ever won. When they talk about the top 70 seats, and in fact, the Republicans, the head of the Republican campaign committee just said there's 71 seats that they think are in jeopardy of their members. These four are not in there, and maybe you could argue the Georgia seat might have been based on the last numbers. The rest weren't even close, but we've moved them from mid-single digits to, I think, 23 points in Kansas from the presidential numbers they had. That's telling us when you get to a real competitive district that we'll have up in 2018, if you can shift 5%, you've just picked up a couple dozen seats, and we're down 24 seats. So instead of, I think, focusing on the negative of it, we had tremendous shifts because people cared enough to come out and vote because they don't like the direction that Donald Trump and the Republicans are taking us. Let's build on that momentum and go into districts where we can take out some of these Republicans electorally, and we need to do that. And I think if we put our energies to that, we can actually win the House of Representatives and a bunch of governorships in 2018.
Build the party, one election.
Absolutely.
Congressman Mark Pocan with us. You can tweet him at repmarkpocan, pocan.house.gov. We'll be right back.